Shay Hart and Rokash Rampersad, both star pupils of Leo Thomas. Hey guys, it's Jay, here with another Ordeal video. Before Season 3 comes out, I wanted to take a look at what a fight between Shay and Rokash would look like with the version of Shay we get at the end of Season 2. The only stipulations I have for this fight is that this will be a rematch, so they will have knowledge of their abilities and fighting style based on their previous fight. However, anything that wasn't showcased in the previous fight will be unknown to them, and I will be keeping the actions of the fight in character, so even if they could do something but haven't really shown or insinuated that they would, I'll be assuming they won't. And this isn't a stipulation, but I want to give a big thanks to Ray Nathan Adams in the Ordeal Discord. For most of the scaling you'll be seeing me explain in the video. And if you don't agree with the scaling, any explanation that uses other characters as a means of comparison should help the scaling be understood. With that out the way, I'd like to ask if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and share with others. Without further ado, onto the vid. Let's first cover Shay, since he had massive improvements from his initial fight with Rokash, by first looking at his strength. Now we see Shay carrying a stack of wooden logs for his training. Though we don't know the size of these logs, if we use a sample size of 16 feet in length by 12 inches in diameter and some average weights for other logs of wood of that size, we can get these logs to be about 1,197 pounds. And if we multiply that by the estimated amount of logs in the picture, which should be about 152, we get 181,944 pounds, meaning Shay should be able to lift about that much without any or much chi enhancement. We can translate this to potential striking force by converting it to Newton, which is the force which gives a mass of 1 kilogram and acceleration of 1 meter per second squared. And that conversion would get us to about 809,327 newtons of force. For reference, amateur boxing has about 2,500 newtons of force. This would be amplified greatly when Shay enters his state. When looking at Shay's speed, we know he has some relevance to Andrea, and Andrea can react to gunfire, which moves faster than the speed of sound. We also see Shay have a similar feat of dodging and reflecting air bullets from Sota. However, this is not the extent of Shay's speed, as he goes on to be far faster than this, as he does keep a decent pace with Rokash originally in their fight, someone we can comfortably put at light speed, but I'll get into that when I talk about Rokash. And this is while Rokash is tapping into his own state, as well as Kaguya, who although has a lower rank than Rokash, can also drastically increase his physical prowess. This base version of Shay should be comparable and faster than the version of himself that fought Rokash originally, and when Shay uses his war state, he keeps pace with Vaal Vegizatha, someone far above the aforementioned two. For Shay's durability, I'm actually going to look at his shield and not Shay himself, as it's a consistent part of his kit that he uses to defend. Now Shay's shield should be capable of handling continental level attacks. Gautier are said by Inspector Ian in episode 46 to be able to reshape continents. Now assuming Gautiers can withstand their own destructive capacity, meaning they have durability similar to what they can output, Shay's shield only faltering and taking damage against an Nth version of Vaal's sword makes sense, as Vaal is a Gautier equivalent character. We also see the shield perfectly negating and withstanding all other attacks that it's used to defend against, such as all of Kaguya's punches, in a swing from the Iron Gaki sword. To get a gauge of Shay's endurance, we can take a look at his chi pool, which should also be on par with that of Vaal and that of the Gakis. We know this because Mahalalel tells Shay Vaal's chi is equal to his own, so if Shay's chi is equal to his, that means he should have a decently large pool of chi. This is further backed up by when Abijah, during Berto and Ariel's attack, mistakes Shay for a third Gaki, insinuating Shay should have a chi pool similar to theirs as well. With that in mind, I want to look at how long Shay fought for during the Battle of Greenland. Now Shay helped Anton and Tevin against Kaguya for nothing more than a few minutes, as that actual fight spans most of episode 94 before Vaal steps in, but Shay would then go on to fight Vaal near the end of episode 95 and most of episode 97, for what could amount to about an hour based on when Kevin saw the Pillar of Light from Shay's state activation and when Bjorn intervened, but it's more than likely less than the whole hour. And let's also keep in mind Shay has War State activated during that fight, which would be draining his chi pool a lot faster. He was also in War State when he fought the Iron Gaki briefly, and was willing to fight him for an even longer period of time when considering his healing factor, even though before the actual interaction, Ilios himself informed Shay he doesn't have much energy left to sustain his state for much longer. For Shay's hacks and abilities, we have a Akhantio, which is shown to put a hole in Kaguya's shoulder, as well as snap one of Vaal's swords, Tomas, which prompted Vaal to step in and cut it in half, as well as scare Kaguya enough to change mask. It also destroyed most of the Iron Gaki shoulder. Shay can also use another variant of Tomas known as David's Sling, which forms a larger version of Tomas that is connected to Chi for more mace-oriented combat. Shay also has Vinter, gifted to him by Bjorn, which is an axe that exudes an excessive amount of frost that can also be used when it's swung. And lastly, Shay can enter his state, which boosts his stats as well as his heat output, with Jamie himself implying Shay's heat surpasses Leo's. The state also provides flight and a healing factor. Now we can look towards Rokash, and let's first look at his strength. In his state, we see he is casually able to break the ground apart on a bigger scale than Tevin. Tevin's miniature earthquake could be anywhere from 2.0 to 3.0 on the Richter scale, which if we use the 2.0 would be 25 25,118,864 newtons of force. In his base form, he is able to hit Shay hard enough to send him flying back and put a crater in the wall. Just assuming the wall is concrete, that would require more than 3,000 newtons of force, which means Rokash could be getting about a 10,000 times boost when entering his state, though this is just an estimate and it could be lower or higher. In regards to Rokash's speed, at a first glance, you could say it's faster than sound. We get this initial conclusion based on Rokash dodging a bullet that was fired by the Titan assassin in episode 18. We know he dodged it based on how the trail of his eye moves, indicating he moved his head to avoid the bullet. However, this is not the extent of Rokash's speed, as when he is attacked again by Titans in episode 28, one of them attempts to use a photon blast on Rokash. We know this is a photon blast due to what Cass tells us in episode 18, saying that the last thing the Mohawk Titan did was use a photon blast. Photons are considered to be fundamental particles of light, or considered to be light itself, and it can be heavily implied that Rokash dodged the blast, as only a couple of panels later, he has the same Titan's head in his hand and no visible damage, meaning he had to dodge it and get in close to finish her off, which should put him at least light speeds, and in his state, faster than light. Now Rokash's durability when using the armor of his state should be on a continental level. When he was younger, the armor is shown having cuts from Veal that aren't very deep, with him actively saying he would have already killed Rokash, but his gold has saved him. And although this gold may hinder Veal a bit, the gold still makes up the entirety of his armor, and the armor should of course be stronger than it was when he was younger, as we see Muramasa isn't able to penetrate it even after multiple attempts of Shay and Andrea using it against him. Rokash has pretty good endurance, except for when he's a bit overwhelmed and enraged. Let me explain. So we see Rokash starting to fight the Titans in a party setting at night, which could be anywhere from 9 PM to 12 AM. And the entire Rokash fight doesn't end till the sun comes up, which in Trinidad is about 6 AM. So Rokash could have been fighting for as low as 7 hours to as high as 10 hours straight, give or take. The reason I say his endurance is bad when he's overwhelmed and enraged is because of what happens near the end of the fight. After Andrea destroys his protection eyes, Rokash says they take forever to rebuild themselves and that he'll run out of chi if he keeps having to repair them. And when he is enraged near the fight's conclusion, he uses the last of his chi to form a pyramid known as Pharaoh's tomb. This lack of chi led to him being pierced by Muramasa, and had he not used the last of his chi to form the tomb or needed to repair the eyes, he would have had more chi to use for himself and keep the fight going, potentially leading to his victory. For Rokash's hacks and abilities, he has the corrosive weapon that comes with his talent, that lets him fire out slashes with the wave of his arms or fingers. This corrosive chi cuts down to the atom and severs the particles of anything they come into contact with. This corrosive chi can be used in two other forms, with the first being Anu Ankh Burial, where Rokash imbues his fist with the corrosive chi and delivers a barrage of punches, and the second being Anu Ankh Impulse, where Rokash bursts the corrosive chi from his hand through his opponent. He can also enter his state, which provides an immense boost to his physical attributes and gives him access to the Pharaoh's protection eyes. These are tendrils that spawn from the ground and follow Rokash within 1,000 square feet of him. These tendrils protect him passively and shoot out large beams of corrosive chi. Rokash can use these tendrils to form a pyramid called Pharaoh's tomb, where the walls are fully lined with protection eyes. With the scaling out of the way, we can get into how the fight would go. Seeing Rokash, Shay would immediately grab Vinter and activate his shields, exactly how he does when the Humvee is attacked. Depending on if Rokash recognizes Vinter will determine how on guard he is. If he does recognize it, he'll probably have an inner monologue about having to watch out for the axe, which could prompt him to use a part of his state sooner. He would then throw out corrosive slashes, as this is normal for him, to try and keep a bit of distance, but Shay would be able to dodge these with ease, as he's faster than he was when he fought Rokash originally, and knows to avoid the slashes. Shay would respond by flinging Tomas at Rokash. However, I could see this missing, as Rokash more than likely wouldn't let himself be hit by it, or could potentially cut it in half with a corrosive chi slash. And seeing the damage it does, he now knows to avoid it altogether. Shay would take this chance to close the distance and swing Vinter, and I'm gonna say it's in character for Rokash to still be underestimating Shay at this point, leading to him still being in base and resulting in an injury. Though injured, this close distance will prompt Rokash to use Anu Ankh Impulse, as he knows it will deal a significant amount of damage to Shay. Shay would see the attack coming and swat his hand away with his shield. It would more than likely take another swing at Rokash with Vinter, but this time Rokash narrowly avoids it and backs away. This is the point where I feel Rokash will enter his state, recognizing he will need all of his strength to defeat Shay. The protection eyes would form around him and fire at Shay, though he would effortlessly avoid these and choose to destroy the eyes before entering his own state and dealing with Rokash directly. I can see the fight becoming more close quarters oriented, but slowly progressing in Shay's favor, as Shay would be using his shield to negate any physical damage from Rokash's attacks and countering with Vinter, which will actually be damaging him when it hits. Shay saying he's breaking down Rokash would prompt him to use Tomas again, but this time with David's sling, as this will allow Shay to use Tomas continuously, damaging Rokash even more than he was doing with Vinter. And with all of this damage piling on, I don't see how Rokash will escape being defeated here. And as everyone probably guessed, Shay comes out victorious. But let's quickly look at the reasons why I feel Shay wins in this scenario. The first is damage. Tomas and Vinter would deal devastating damage to Rokash. Vinter was able to stalemate Veal while he used an amped version of his sword, as well as take out the Dothniel summon. And even though Tomas didn't do visible damage to Veal, we know Shay can damage him as the Dothniel summon took the brunt of the hit that was aimed for him, and it still left him in a bit of a droopy state. And every time Shay would have hit Veal with Tomas, he was absorbing the chi from it, making it deal far less damage than what it actually can. Tomas is also a stronger technique than Akantio, and Akantio was able to snap one of Veal's swords. Those same swords were able to damage Rokash a bit. The second is a better state amp. Even though they both have states, Shay's war state provides a better amp than his combat mode did, which when Shay used it, allowed him to keep up with Rokash while he was using his own state. Shay should also be comparable now to his combat mode in base, and war state would provide a bigger boost than combat mode did, as it is the highest form Ilios can achieve. And third is prior knowledge. Since Shay knows how Rokash fights and is equipped with better things to deal with him and deal better damage more consistently than he did originally. Let me know how you feel about the scaling in the video, as well as the structure. I do agree with some of the scaling, and I think this structure works well with one-on-one fights. And if you feel like I missed anything or have any questions, leave them in the comments, and suggest any other one-on-one matches.